Hi there, everyone, and welcome to LanguageCaster.com's Football Language Podcast. My name's Damien, and I'm enjoying the sun over here in Japan. Damien, the other half of the LanguageCaster team, is in London, where England have just lost a warm-up game before the Euros in Germany. Damien's also posted recently about the phrase "do the double" and which teams achieved it or were close in Europe this year. Come along to languagecaster.com to check that out, or subscribe to the podcast via your favourite podcast feed. Now, on this week's Football Language Podcast, we're taking a look at the word heavy and how it's used with other words to talk about football. But first, here's a message from one of our supporters.
Merhaba beyler, ben Türkiye'den Mert. Şu anda LanguageCaster dinliyorsunuz. Sevgiler.
Yes, you are listening to LanguageCaster, and that message was in Turkish. Thank you, Mert. And now it's time to kick off and discuss today's word, heavy. Okay, so heavy is used commonly in three phrases: a heavy challenge or tackle, a heavy defeat, and a heavy touch. Let's start with the first one. A heavy challenge is a strong tackle. It usually means that the player being tackled was hurt in the tackle or even injured. When we use the phrase, we're not usually criticizing the tackler. The tackle is very physical, but it may be a fair tackle. If it's a bad tackle, we might say it was a reckless challenge, a leg breaker, or a dirty tackle, for example. And here's an example from the Guardian match report on the England versus Iceland game last night. John Stones, who took a heavy challenge at the outset before making way at half-time, was off the pace. Stones would depart with his right foot heavily strapped. So John Stones was hurt in a heavy challenge and was replaced to make sure he wasn't injured further. Another way heavy is used is with touch, a heavy touch. This describes how a player controls the ball. It means the player receiving the ball does not control the ball as they wanted to. The ball moves further away from the player than they wanted it to. It makes the next touch more difficult. It's often used with first, a heavy first touch. Here's an example from a Daily Mail match report on Chelsea versus Bournemouth in the 2019-20 season. Twice, Josh King broke behind Chelsea lines in the second half. On the first occasion, he was clean through and leaving Kurt Zouma for dead, but a heavy touch allowed Zouma to recover and block. So King's miscontrol, or heavy touch, meant the defender Zouma could block King's next touch, which was a shot. This example also includes a wonderful phrase, to leave someone for dead, which means to go past the opposition player easily. And the last combination we'll look at today is a heavy defeat, which simply means a big defeat. It's commonly used with the verb suffer. So Team A suffered a heavy defeat, which means they lost by a lot of goals. This phrase is in this example from Eurosport.com. The Red Devils came into the game in troubled form, having suffered a heavy defeat to relegation candidate Bournemouth at Old Trafford before crashing out of the Champions League on Tuesday. The Red Devils are, of course, Manchester United, and they were beaten 3-0 at home by Bournemouth, a bad defeat.
Ég heiti Marino og ég stuðningsmaður Íslands og þið að hlusta á languagecast.com.
Thank you for that message, which was in Icelandic. So that brings us to the end of today's short football language podcast. Remember, you can come along to languagecaster.com and leave a comment on this post or send us a message to admin@languagecaster.com. You can follow us on all the usual social media sites. Just search for LanguageCaster. Remember to like, follow, and spread the word. So we looked at 3 phrases today. These were a heavy tackle or challenge, a heavy touch, and a heavy defeat. Tune in again next week for more football language. Thanks for listening and enjoy all the football. Ta-ra!